Hello. What do you do if there's a deadline coming up and you're afraid that you're not going to meet it? How do you deal with the stress, the pressure, the anxious thinking around that scenario? I'm Trevor Emdon. I'm a success coach, and let me tell you how that's done. Easy peasy. But first, you have to turn your idea of the world kind of upside down. So, let's take a scenario. Let's suppose, I don't know, you've got to make a meeting and you're stuck in traffic. There's a deadline, right? There's the clock is ticking, the meeting is going to start, and if you're not there, well, you're not there, and there'll be some consequences to whatever that means, right? So there's a deadline situation. I've been in that situation many times, stuck in traffic, can't move, nothing you can do about it, no point in going beep, beep, beep on the horn or anything like that, because not going to make any difference. So, and yes, certainly, I got anxious about it, and sometimes even frustrated, and steam would come out of my ears, and so on. However, you have to look at it this way, and it's taken me a while to learn this too. So don't feel bad if you don't get it, because most people don't. So, but when you learn this, you will. The penny will drop. Okay. So, here's the thing: the deadline isn't real. Now, you say to me, well, of course it is. It's going to start at 2 o'clock and it's already 1:30, and you've got, at least 25 minutes of driving and you're not moving. Yeah, those may be the facts, but the deadline itself isn't real. You have to see the bigger picture, right? So the deadline is just 2 o'clock, but the deadline doesn't cause the anxious feelings or thinking. You are doing that. So, for example, if in that situation, we could jump out of the car and ask a passerby who knows nothing about your meeting, hey, how do you feel about there being a meeting in 25 minutes away at 2 o'clock right now? And they go, it's nothing to do with me. I don't have any feelings about that. If you asked somebody who lives in, I don't know, Namibia about your deadline, assuming you can speak the same language, they would go, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no deadline, right? The deadline and its meaning are only in your head. So, what I mean by that is, what's making you anxious is your own thoughts about the deadline, not the deadline. If you miss the meeting, or you're late for the meeting, or whatever the deadline is, well, then there'll be some other consequences, and you'll have thoughts about that situation too. Now, what you're doing when you're anxious about the deadline is you're making up a disaster movie in your head. Oh, if I'm not there, so-and-so will be angry, and I'll miss this important decision, and I have to vote with the board of directors on whatever it is, right? Well, if you're not there, something else will happen, and nobody knows what that will be unless you're not there. And then you'll all find out, right? And when you find out, there will be another batch of decisions based on the consequences of you not being there to be made. And you can either feel anxious about those now or at the time or never, because because they will also be a bunch of your thinking about whatever has to be dealt with. Do you see? There's nothing that's actually implicit about the deadline. Nobody else has the feelings about the deadline that you do. So the deadline isn't causing the anxiety or the pressure. You are. You are looking at it in a way and making up a movie in your head that's just, but that's terrible. If I don't meet that deadline, well, if you don't meet the deadline, you won't meet the deadline. I'm not saying you shouldn't try to meet deadlines. If there's a deadline and there are people depending on you, or people waiting for money from you, or people expecting you to turn up, then of course you should use your integrity and your values and your moral code and whatever else you live by to do that. I'm not saying ignore them. I'm saying the thinking about it is something you can ignore, because it is what it is. You can't change the traffic jam. If you're in it, you're in it, and then it's too late. So either the traffic will move and you'll get there, or the traffic will not move fast enough and you won't get there, and then something else will happen. But actually feeling anxious about it isn't being caused by the deadline. It's being caused by your thinking. That's what you're experiencing. You're thinking, right? And it doesn't mean, should I think positive thoughts then? No. If you try that, you'll just feel more anxious because you'll probably find that you can't in that moment, right? So it's like, oh, well, that's what's happening. Just accept it. Look, it's like, I've used this metaphor before, but hopefully it helps and you may not have seen it before. If you're hammering something, if you're doing some DIY using a hammer and you hit your thumb, ow, that's going to hurt. And maybe even for a few hours or even a day or two afterwards, you might be sat in that traffic jam and your thumb would start to throb. Ow. But it's a temporary injury and it'll go away. Same with these anxious thoughts. It's like, yeah, I know. I'm feeling anxious thoughts. I'm thinking anxious thoughts. You can even talk to yourself in the third person. Oh, Trevor's having some anxious thoughts about the deadline right now. Oh, I wonder what he'll do with those. Because it's not going to change the situation. And you can either just let the thoughts float away out the car window or wherever you are, or you can carry on thinking that this is real and it's going to happen. What'll happen will happen. There are some things that you can't control, like traffic jams, right? Or whatever it is. It's like, that's it. Let me tell you a joke to finish this off, and then maybe you'll see it. This was one of my dad's favourite jokes, and it's a Jewish joke, and I am Jewish, so I'm sure nobody will be offended by this. It's not in any way. I hope not. Anyway, so the joke goes like this. So it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's a middle-aged Jewish couple, and they're in bed, except Jaime cannot sleep. He's tossing, turning, he's up and down, he's pacing the room, back and forth to the bathroom, light, in bed, out of bed, and eventually his wife, who can't sleep because he can't sleep, has had enough. So she puts the light on and she says to him, Jaime, what's the matter? Why are you tossing and turning? And he said, excuse my terrible accent, and he said, I'm so worried, he said, because it's Simey. Simey? She said, Simey crossed the road? What about Simey? Why are you worried about Simey? No, he said, I owe him £1,000. Oh, she said, why are you worried about that? And he said, because I can't pay him. I haven't got £1,000. She said, let me handle it. She gets out of bed, puts a dressing gown on, flings open the window. This is narrow London streets, probably 1950. She flings open the window. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and out the window she shouts, Simey! Simey! Until eventually the light goes on the window across the road, and a tousled head, bleary-eyed, comes to the window. Rachel, that's you? Why are you shouting my name? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. What do you want? She said, Jaime says he owes you £1,000. That right? He said, yeah. She said, well, he can't pay you. Bang! Shuts the window. And she turns to her husband. She said, there, now you go to sleep. He got the worry. Hope that helps.